Okay, here are the solutions to Microeconomics Multiple Choice May 2013 paper. Let's start with question 1. The main economic objective of firm in a market economy. So think of the word market economy. Market economy means firms are in control, and it's the opposite of a command economy where the government is planning everything. The main economic objective of firms, of course, therefore, is to make as much profit as possible. So our answer has to be D, a maximisation of profits. If we go to question 2, we're given a PPF. And you can see that the PPF between consumer and capital goods has moved from SR to ST. So before you answer the question, you should try and get in your head what that means. Something has happened which gives us the same amount of consumer goods, but the economy with its same resources can now make more capital goods. So something has happened in the economy, which means the economy can now make more capital goods. How do we know this? Because the total amount of capital goods has gone up. Before we could only make OR, now we can make OT. If we now look at the answers, the answer has to be A, productivity in the production of capital goods. So productivity has increased. We're more efficient and productive, which means we can make more capital goods. Okay, question 3. The price elasticity of supply. So let's write it down. You can go from 0 to 1, 1 to infinity, infinity. Perfectly inelastic, relatively inelastic, unitary, relatively elastic, perfectly elastic. The price elasticity of supply for most goods is 0. Whilst it can be 0, most goods are not going to be perfectly inelastic. So it cannot be A. B, between 0 and -1, you'll notice it doesn't have any minuses, so that's wrong. Between -1 and minus infinity is wrong. D, positive. That's positive, that's positive, that's positive, that's positive, that's positive. So the answer has to be D. Question 4. We're asked to look at market failure diagrams. Which one of the following diagrams, A, B, C, or D, shows negative externalities in consumption and production? Okay, let's start with negative externalities in production. We want the marginal social cost to be greater than the marginal private cost. So let's look at the diagrams to find that. Marginal social cost is greater than marginal private cost, so that's a possibility. B, the private cost is greater than the social cost, that doesn't work. D, the private cost is greater than the social cost, that doesn't work. If we also look at C, social costs are more than private. So far the answer can be either A or B. But we also need externalities in consumption. So let's look at the social benefit and private benefit lines. Let's look at A. The social benefits are more than the private benefits. That gives you a positive externality. That cannot be correct. The question asks for a negative externality in consumption. Let's now double check with C. The private benefits are more than the social. So the benefits to the individual of alcohol use are more than the social benefits. So there's an externality in consumption. So the answer has to be C. Question 5. Which of the following is going to give us greater labour productivity? Labour productivity. So let's think about what productivity means. Productivity means more efficient. Using the same amount of resources, you're going to be able to increase output. An increase in demand just means there'll be more output. That does not make you more efficient. So it's not A. A fall in wages. A fall in wages, you could argue, would make workers less motivated. They're going to be less efficient, so that's not going to improve productivity. An increase in the number of firms, that just increases output. It doesn't improve the productivity of output. D, an increase in capital investment. Capital investment, more technology, more machines, more efficient, So that's going to make our workers be able to work harder and make more output. So the answer is indeed D. Question 6. We've got our mix and match. Remember, when you have these questions, you need to find the odd one out. So we're looking for which of the following intervention is appropriate. So we want the correct middle column. So the only way you can go through this question is to work horizontally across line by line. Factor immobility means workers are immobile. It's difficult to switch from job to job. Inefficient allocation of resources, that's correct. The intervention, however, indirect tax, that's wrong. That is not going to solve this market failure. The right answer we would need there is something along the lines of better skills for workers or more information so they could swap jobs. Let's look at B. Public goods are not provided. That's correct. Government provision is the solution. So we have a correct line here. So the answer is B. Question 7. The existence of scarcity. Scarcity means, of course, that you have to choose how to allocate resources. If you allocate resources, you now have to choose how you're going to make those. When you make those, remember you have an opportunity cost. So this is the basic economic problem which is being tested in this question. Our answer has to be individuals now have to make choices because they have scarce resources. So the answer is C. Question 8. An increase in income. So income has gone up, leads to an increase in demand for holidays abroad. So when we're talking about holidays abroad, income goes up, demand goes up. That is a normal good. That's what we normally expect to happen. People have more money, they buy more. Let's look at what happens to holidays in the UK. There's a decrease in demand. So when income goes up, people are buying less of this good. This is an inferior good. So before we've even looked at the answers A, B, C and D, you've worked out what information you can, and you've worked out. The answer, look, is holidays in the UK are inferior, holidays abroad are normal. A is the answer. Question 9. The government subsidises social housing. Social housing is provided to low incomes which are lower than the free market. Why would the economic justification occur for subsidising this? So we have to think of why the government would intervene. There must be free market failure. The only reason why governments intervene is if the market failure happens. So you're looking for an example of market failure. The free market is not allocating resources properly because of an unequal distribution. Your answer is 9. A. Question 10. Which of the following describes the relationship between the demand for air travel and the demand for pilots? So let's think of this. If more people want to travel by air, that means companies like EasyJet, British Airways, they will now need to put on more flights. To put on more flights, they would need more pilots. If people have less demand for air travel, there would be less planes, you need less pilots. So the demand for pilots depends on the demand for air. This, therefore, is known as the concept of derived demand. Question 11. The diagram below shows the marginal private benefit and social benefit and cost curves for a merit good. A merit good. So we can see a merit good. As soon as you see the word merit good, you know these things are good. They create positive externalities, and these are underprovided. If the government was going to intervene with a merit good, we want more merit goods to be produced, so you know your answer is going to involve a subsidy. You should work that out before you even look at the answers in the multiple choice. So you can see the social benefits are more than the private benefits. So here's the social social optimum. Here's the free market because the externalities are ignored. Here's the externality. So here's how much supply and demand the market mechanism provides. Here's the social, and there is the under provision or under consumption by the market. Now let's look at the questions. Why is a misallocation likely to occur? You've already worked the answer out. The market failure, the misallocation of resources, is because there is under provision of this good. Your answer is D. Under provision equal to HJ. Question 12. The diagram below shows supply and demand curves for cigarettes. The government imposes a tax, so there is the tax. That is why supply is shifted to the left, because the impact of the tax is on the producer. Which of the following shows the share of tax revenue by producers and consumers? So let's work this out before we look at the answer questions. Here is the consumer's share of tax. Before, consumers were paying 6. After the tax, they are paying 9. So the price for consumers has gone up by £3. So the consumers are paying £3 of the tax. But remember, let's look at the quantity. 50 cigarettes are bought. So 150 in tax. What about the producers? Here is the producer's share of the tax underneath. The producers before were earning 6. Now they're only earning 5. So they're paying £1. £1 times 50 quantity. They are now paying 50. So you're now looking for the correct combination. So let's look at the chart. Producers 50. Consumers 150. The answer for this question has to be A. Question 13. Money is used as a medium of exchange. Let's go through them. Barter or swapping is going to become more common. The problem with that is the word more. If you got money, you less likely need to use barter or swapping. So A is wrong. Trade is likely to increase. That is the correct answer for this question. Question 14. We have fruit. We have prices. So this is the price of orange in year 1, the price of orange in year 2, the price of apples, the price of pears, and so on. Which of the following is supported by the data? Remember, some of these will sound right, but we're looking for what conclusions can be drawn from just looking at the data alone. The only way to work this out is to go sequentially through A, B, C, and D. A. The earnings of orange growers will have gone down if demand for orange is price elastic. So let's have a look at oranges. The price has dropped. If demand is elastic, it means customers will react. That will cause a much larger increase in quantity. In elasticity terms, a more than proportionate change. If there is far more people buying this, it means actually earnings will go up, not down. So the answer is not A. So we now work through. The trend in price of apples between year 1 and year 2 will encourage apple growers to increase. Well, let's have a look. Apples were 200, they dropped, so the price has gone down. If price goes down, supply will go down, less profit potential. So it will not encourage apple growers to increase. The answer, it will actually cause them to decrease. So B is wrong. C, the price elasticity for demand is lowest. The only information they've given us is the price. To work out price elasticity, we need price and quantity. They do not tell us any information about quantity, so we cannot work out price elasticity, so we don't know that from the data. So we now think D must be the correct answer through elimination. Total revenue from grapes will go down if grapes is inelastic. So if we look at grapes, the price has gone down. The price has gone down. Inelastic means customers will not react. Inelastic, they do not react. So they don't react to the lower price. So they will not buy any more. Therefore, it just means the revenue will drop. So the answer is indeed D. Question 15. an increase in firm size. As a result, average costs fall. So you know there must be economies of scale. This is because we're using our capital in our factory utilization better, and advertising space has lowered cost. Which two marketing economies of scale? Which two economies of scale? Advertising is marketing, using our factory better is technical. The answer has to be A. Number 16. Which of the following statements about market failure is correct? Small firms are less efficient than large due to diseconomies of scale. Diseconomies of scale has nothing to do with market failure. That cannot be the answer. B. The existence of free riders will result in overproduction of public goods. This is wrong. Public goods will not be provided at all, not overproduction. So that's wrong. The social benefits of some private goods exceed the private benefits. Social benefits greater than private benefits. This is a positive externality. We know that market failure happens because these are ignored. That is the answer. Let's double check. D is wrong. Markets do not supply merit goods. They do supply merit goods, but they're underprovided. So it cannot be D. So our answer is C. Question 17. A misallocation of resources is likely to occur in a monopoly. Other firms enter the industry. Other firms cannot enter the industry if you have a monopoly because of barriers to entry. Higher prices are charged compared to competitive. So because of a monopoly, it's distorting prices as compared to competitive. That is our correct answer. Number 18. A diagram shows our MPC, MSC, and MPB and MSB curves. In other words, it's an externality question. Let's look at what's happening. The free market position is J. The free market position is J. That means if you leave it to supply and demand, you're going to have that quantity. Where is the social optimum? Social optimum happens where the social curves meet. So here is the social optimum. We should be at that point. So we have got under provision as our market failure. So if we want to solve under provision, we need the market to supply more. What do we need to put into it to supply more? There needs to be a subsidy. So first of all, we need to look at our answers for subsidies. We've only got two possibilities. Taxes are now eliminated. So our answer either has to be A or C. How much subsidy needs to be put in place? Well, remember, to solve an externality, you need to internalize the externality. There's the externality, the gap between the two curves. H to F. The answer, of course, therefore, is A. Question 19. Elasticity of demand minus 0.5. Remember, we ignore minus, so this is 0.5. It means demand is relatively inelastic. Inelastic means not sensitive to price. Given a change in price, there's a less than proportionate. If the product increases by 10%, a less than proportionate. So our answer for 19, less than 10. Number 20. An inferior good always has, this is a fact you just must learn, always has a negative income elasticity. So you go through your answers and you will find D has to be your correct answer. Number 21. Index prices again. Index prices is really testing your mathematical ability rather than anything in economics. Remember, your base year is always 100, so you compare things back to the base year. Which of the following can be deduced from the data? You have to go through each one by one to see if it works out to be correct or not. The price of clothing rose from 2008 to 2012. Price rose by 5, rose, look at what's happening here, goes back down again. B, compared with 2012, the price of clothing was 20% cheaper. So it's asking you to compare 2 years. 2012, the index was 125. 2008, it was 100. How much has that changed by? Change over the original times 100. That is how we work out comparative changes. The change is 25 over the original is 100. 25. So we're looking over the original was cheaper in 2008 compared with 12. It asks you to compare with 12. So be careful here because you have to compare it with 2012. 2012 is your base year compared with 2012. So 25 out of 125 actually equals 20%. So the answer is indeed B. That is a very, very difficult question to be able to answer. 22. Which of the following is going to be a factor of immobility? Immobility is where workers will not swap, will not change jobs. So a teacher cannot swap easily to be a plumber, etc. So it's a worker's unwillingness to change jobs. The answer is A. Market failure number 23 arises when prices rise in response to excess demand. That is the normal rebalancing of supply and demand to get to an equilibrium. That is nothing to do with market failure. No account is taken of positive externalities. If the market does not take account of externalities, it causes market failure. The answer is B. Number 24. We have a supply and demand curve. You're told we have a negative externality. If there is a negative externality, it means we want to do something to reduce this good. So to reduce, what can the government do? If you want to reduce something, we have to tax the good. Let's have a look. You've got two options. Tax P2, P3 or tax P2, P1. If you put a tax on the good, you know it's going to shift supply to the left. It tells you you must have OQ2, so you want to get to that equilibrium. How much tax needs to be put on the good? Look at the diagram. The tax is the vertical distance between the two curves. P3 to P2. The answer has to be B. Our last question. A government wishing to reduce firms' carbon emissions uses pollution permits. This may fail. So why won't a pollution permit work? Let's look through the answers. Firms would need permits if their production pollutes. That's correct, they do need permits. It doesn't tell us a reason why it might fail, so it can't be A. Firms which do not use all their permits can sell some of them. That's correct, you can sell them. It's a tradable pollution permit. That is actually going to give them the incentive to lower their production. So that's wrong. Permits didn't impose strict enough limits in the first place. If they don't have strict enough limits, it means they're going to be able to pollute up to the high limit, which is too high. That would mean you won't reduce pollution. The answer is C. Hopefully now you've gone through and marked your answers. Have a look back through. Check two things. If you had any wrong, go back, look at your notes, listen to my video for that clip for that question again, and make sure you understand where you've gone wrong. More importantly, why the correct answer is correct. The other thing I want you to double check now on this multiple choice, please make sure you haven't just guessed an answer and you actually understand why an answer is correct.